Welcome all to Chasing Tents. My name is Abby. Thank you so much for joining me. If you saw the title, you probably know this video is all about reviewing that lovely Aprilia RSV4 Factory. And behind me, if you can hear, I'm right outside Silverstone Circuit, and that's the Luffield corner. So a lot of V8 and V10 cars are giving it some. And it's my 7th attempt of recording this video because there's so much noise from those cars and I can't complain, to be honest. And right next to me, you can see some Countaches, Lamborghini Countach, Ferraris. There's some guy who restores and race preps them. So it's absolutely brilliant to get really into the mood of reviewing a absolute stunning motor when you've got an ambience of amazing motorsport around you, especially when you can hear lovely cars at Silverstone. Now, I'm not going to take the bike to the track. It's a car track day today. We did try to review this bike on the track. Unfortunately, it was raining. So if you haven't seen that video, you can. I'll leave a link in the description. Also, I've done a full overview of this bike. So I'm not going to sit here and read the press release or kind of read the brochure out to you, because that's not my style. And I also don't put a camera on my helmet and talk while I'm riding. It's just not one of the things I do. What I try to do is leave all the camera aside, get on the bike, do a proper ride and really, do a proper fast ride, and then go back home and then talk about the whole bike one by one, handling, engine, all sorts of things in detail. So this was just the intro. So what I'm going to do now is just going to ride the bike, hopefully get some shots. I'm on my own, so I'll try my best to get some nice shots, and then I'll go home and we'll talk about all the kind of features one by one and what makes this bike so special. But I would also request you guys to watch that overview I did a few weeks ago, because that was a fantastic video where I went through every single detail of the bike. So guys, I'll catch you in a bit. Let's go and ride this bike. Welcome back everyone. Now, two very important things I really want to tell you before we get into the details. Number one, this video is divided into different chapters. So anything I'm going to be talking about will be in the timeline, divided into engine, suspension, ergonomics. So if you do want to watch this video again later on, you can watch, and it just makes it easy viewing. Number two, how I conducted this test. Now, I didn't go to any busy roads or any dual carriageways or any motorway journeys. What I really did is what this bike was actually meant for, is like fast riding, absolutely fast riding on kind of country routes. And I chose a really good country route outside Silverstone, just the Stowe village and Silverstone village. And I found some fast lanes, which is fast slalom corners, which reminded me of Maggots and Beckett's a bit. And like there was a dip as well. There was a long straight. So the dip reminded me of the Brands Hatch circuit and the long straight, and a few other corners which kind of were taken at a very fast speed. That's why I won't show you a lot of the footage of me riding with the dash, because I really wanted to give it some, to really test this bike, and then the conditions were a little bit damp, which kind of favored in the electronics part, so I could really test the electronics as well. So the test has been done very thoroughly at some very decent speeds. I can tell you that I've owned an Aprilia RSV4 RF now for about 4 years, and I do give it some every time I go out. Anyways, let's start with this video. And number one, what we're going to be talking about is paintwork. How does paintwork actually affect riding? You're going to be laughing, and straight away you're going to be thinking, what the hell are you talking about? paintwork on this bike plays a very important part, because as you probably know from my previous video where I went through all the features of the bike, that there are some special paint schemes on this bike to kind of pay a homage to the 1990s Aprilia two-stroke bikes, which Rossi was great at. Biaggi, a lot of people were kind of doing great things on those bikes, so it pays a bit of a homage. However, the satin scheme, the one I had, if you choose that blue, and I know it's a Marmite thing with the paint scheme, some people love it, some people don't, but any satin paint scheme you're going to be riding on, especially a sports bike, you brake and your gentleman vegetables are going to hit the tank pretty hard. So you must have stump grips, and please don't go for any ugly ones. Just go for clear, proper, original stump grips. They don't damage your leathers, anymore the way they used to say. They don't go yellow in the sun. So cut all the excuses out. It's proper stump grips, and they really give you proper support, especially with any satin scheme. I was actually testing the Triumph Triple RS not too long ago, which is a naked bike, so upright position in satin scheme, and still the tank wasn't giving me much kind of grip with my legs, because satin, even the word tells you that it's going to be very smooth. So the one with the glossy scheme, the leathers, some people hate stump grips, so that's why I'm saying this to you. With the one with the glossy ones are okay, but if you're going to go for the satin scheme, make sure you've got proper stump grips on, so you get some proper grip. You can really grip the bike, the tank, with your legs, and that makes handling so much more easier, and you are in optimum control. Okay, now let's talk about the dash. The dash on this bike is absolutely sublime. It's more dynamic, more brighter, bigger screen. Now the best thing about this screen is no matter how you're riding the bike, so on the track you could be in all sorts of positions, just a slight glance of the dash, you can see everything. Nothing fades away when you move away from the dash, so everything is very clear, and you can declutter and clutter the dash as much as you want. So you can have all sorts of AWS, like anti-wheelie, AWC, anti-wheelie control, TC and stuff, all those figures in there, or you can actually declutter it and you just have a lovely rev counter with some speed. You can have race mode on the dash, you can have road mode, you can have like a user mode. You can do so many things. You just have to spend a little bit more time to really kind of have a dash which suits you. One thing, I have a kind of a little thing which I always think about these dashes. Now I run an I2M dash on my bike with a Malotti racing cover. Now Malotti racing cover has a glossy kind of silicone protection on top. Recently at Cadwell Park I removed it, and with the matte finish you can see everything. Where I'm going at here is, if you see the BMW dash, it's got a matte finish as well. So I really don't understand why every single company who does these colored dash, why don't they put matte finish on top so the sun glare isn't as bad? Now on the Aprilia, the sun glare is hardly negligible, but still I think with the matte finish on top, it would just give it that perfect, clear, no glare look which the BMW dash has, and I think the BMW dash is still the best in the market. Okay, let's move to ergonomics now. Now, ergonomics sounds boring, but it's one of the most important things you need to really look at before you actually even get on your bike, even out of the showroom. So let me go through one by one what I really mean. Number one, on this bike, what they really have now is thought about other people. The bike was always designed around Max Biaggi, so it was a small package. The bike was a bit cramped for tall people. This time it all changes, and my goodness me, you can actually feel everything. So number one, what they've done is the screen on the bike is actually quite wider now, and it actually gives you an increased area for a complete tuck when you are on the straight. So it actually gives you a very good aero kind of a feel when you are tucked in. So before on the Aprilia the screen was tiny. I mean, I upgraded one to a WRS one, but still it was the space wasn't that much. This one is actually quite big, and you can really tuck in very nicely. The seat height is lowered by 9 millimeters, and foot pegs are lowered by 10 millimeters. Now you're going to say 9 mm, 10 mm, what's that? That's like 1 centimeter. You know, when it comes to comfort and ease of riding, ergonomics with lower center of gravity, so even 10 mm, 9 mm center of gravity makes a big difference. Plus it gives you that extra space, extra comfort, which the previous model didn't have. Even though they've lowered these things, you still get 1.5 extra degrees on lean. Now, I know this is very technical, but things change when you put slicks on. So with any bike, when you put slicks on, ergonomics do change. So these figures are obviously with the road SP, Supercorsa SP or Supercorsa SC1, SC2 compound tires. However, when you put slicks on, things change. But even though they made things comfortable, lower, you still get extra lean in terms of degrees, 1.5 degrees. It doesn't sound much, but still every little makes a difference. The clip-ons on the bike are outwards, so you get better leverage. Even in slow corners, fast turning, the leverage is absolutely wonderful. I actually looked at the clip-ons to see if there's any more space. They've actually really pushed them out quite a bit. And when I did the previous review, I had this bike next to a Ducati and the R1, and the actual length of the clip-ons is actually more than that, and obviously the leverage, it makes a huge difference when you're turning. Also on the rear sets, what they've done is they got rid of the hero blobby things. Sometimes when you're leaning, those hero blobs can really put you off on a road tarmac or on the racetrack as well. So when they lowered the pegs, they probably realized that those hero blobby things are actually probably touching the ground too soon, so they got rid of them completely, which I think is a really good touch. The tank shape is a little bit different. It's a bit more slimmer, a bit more longer, so you can actually use your inner thighs to really turn the bike well. Now, I realized this at the Jerez circuit, at the sector 3, where you're really taking a lot of speed through fast corners, and your inner thighs play such a big difference because you can really push the bike. And with this one, you really feel immediately you sit on the bike and you notice the difference. Even the seat is bigger now. So before when you were doing a tuck, your coccyx at the back would touch the tail very quickly. With this one, you have so much room. So I think a lot of people are going to put that padding in between the rear seat and where your bum is. So you basically, you know, when you really push it, you really go back. So I think that will really help. But for taller riders, again, the ergonomics are really, really fantastic. Okay, in ergonomics, I really wanted to talk about mirrors, because mirrors form a massive part of ease of rideability on the road, especially the RF mirrors. So these are the original RF mirrors from 2015-2016. The mirrors on the new bike are pretty much the same, except for the indicators. You don't see the indicators because the indicators, if you are in the UK and Europe, the indicators are based in the headlamps, and I'll talk about that later because that's a very intriguing part. Anyways, there is a part here which moves if it captures in the camera. So basically what I'm trying to say is, when you're riding on the superbike on a long journey, you don't have to do this or this to look at the traffic behind you, which you normally find on superbikes. These adjustable mirrors play a massive role, and especially I'm going to bring in cruise control in this ergonomics part, because when you're on the dual carriageway and when you're on the motorway, cruise control plays a big part, because with V-twins and V4s, engine braking is big time and it's lovely. It actually helps you quite a bit on the track and on the road. And with this new bike, you can actually adjust the engine braking. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is, with cruise control on a long journey, you can really relax your hand a bit, and you can, bike is still going at a decent speed. And with little touches like this mirror, it just makes the whole kind of rideability on the road a lot more easier. Okay, let's talk about the switchgear now. Now, switchgear is quite important. You might not think so, but it is, because on the track, you don't want to be faffing around, or you don't want to be pressing one button and you press the other one by mistake. Because the switches have got gaps between them. So even if you're wearing winter gloves or your race gloves or any other gloves, you can easily kind of define the button you really want to press. And certain buttons have got multi-functionalities, so it's not cluttered, but you really got to spend a little bit of time so you really know what button does what and what multi-function button does what. But I think the switchgear is spot on. Gone is that toggle, which used to make it a bit kind of clunky and a bit busy, and now you've got some very clear buttons which are so easy to use, and the finish is absolutely plush. Okay, let's talk about the chassis and the swing arm. Now, you know what? This is the holy grail when it comes to Aprilia's chassis. This twin power amazing chassis has always been absolutely brilliant. And then you've got that swing arm, which has always been brilliant. Now, this time the swing arm is 30% stiffer, it's lighter, and it's underslung even more. So now I'm just going to give you a basic example. On my Aprilia RSV4 RF, from the swing arm to the chain guard, there's probably this much gap. With this one, it's actually more than double, because it's so underslung, and all that kind of center of gravity is so low. When you put a little bit of foot pressure on the foot peg, the bike just turns smoothly. I'll give you a very good example. On this route, the country route, there were some lovely turns. So I thought, you know, I had a 360-degree camera. I thought, you know what, I'm going to get some real nice, you know, shots here of myself, because I was a one-man band. There was no one kind of shooting me from the from outskirts. It was just me and the bike. And so I thought I'll do that. But you know what, with those turns, I just put a little bit of pressure with my foot peg, or a little bit of thigh pressure with my inside thigh, and the bike would just turn. So I really didn't have to do a lot of these shots, which I was trying to do, because the bike would just turn so beautifully. And this is the whole point of this underslung, stiffer swing arm. You know, coming out of corners, this was one thing which sometimes the rear was just a little bit out of shape. I know the electronics can sort a lot of things out these days, but now having that stiffer swing arm will really give it that oomph coming out of corners, because the chassis made it really beautiful. So from kind of full speed to brakes, this bike, no other bike comes closer to an Aprilia when it comes to full brakes, into the corner, mid corner, but coming out was a little bit of an Achilles heel. Now that's all solved, because that rear you know, it just really sorts it out. And on the road, it makes so much sense, because the bike never, even having more than 200 horsepower, the bike never really gets you in knots, if that's the right sentence. You know, really, you don't really feel that the bike is riding you, you know, or the, you know, normally, you know, I mention this all the time, like, you know, you're with a big German Shepherd and that's trying to take you for a walk rather than you doing that. So with this one, you are all the time in control of the bike. The kind of the chassis dynamics and the swing arm, it never takes over. You are always trying to tell the bike something, and it just beautifully does it. Okay guys, I really want to tell you 3 things about the chassis and the swing arm combination, which really will make a lot of sense. Why all that race technology has come really trickled down to the road, and why the 54 World Championships which Aprilia have won, there's a reason for it, because there is so much adjustability on the bike. Now on the factory models, even before and even now, you can actually change the steering angle, so the front wheel could be moved further away from the bike or a little bit towards the bike. So stability in the straight line, that could be increased if you're on a track with long straights like Silverstone, where I was doing the test. Also, if you've got like Cadwell Park or Mallory Park, or somewhere where the straight isn't that long, you can, you know, you can shorten the wheelbase. Same with the swing arm as well. Swing arm could be moved up and down, and you can also move the position of the sprocket and the chain, shorten and everything. Long wheelbase, short wheelbase, depending on where you are. Even the engine, where the engine sits. Now all factory models from 2015 onwards, including this one, the engine sits quite low, but you can actually move the engine 5mm up, 2mm up. There are 3 different positions. So look at the kind of tailor-made kind of like things you can actually do to the bike, depending on how you like to ride it on the track. Now I know I'm going into proper details, but there is a reason for this, because they say Aprilia is one of those most adjustable bikes, and this is the reason. Yes, the position were cramped before, now which has changed, but it was all designed around Max Biaggi. There was a reason for it, and Max Biaggi told Aprilia these little things: change this, change that, make this adjustable, make that adjustable, and now it makes all the difference. Also, they say Aprilia is the most stable bike when it comes to get, you know, full throttle coming into brakes and into the corner, and there's a big reason for it, because the chassis has never relied on the electronics too much. Even with my 2015 model, the electronics are not as advanced. Even the last year's model or the year before, the electronics were brilliant, but not as good as the modern stuff we see these days. So the chassis and the swing arm never relied on the stability. Now I gave a very good example in my last video, like the Eurofighter Typhoon jet, which is inherently an unstable jet, but it takes a lot of computers, I think 50 computers or something, makes that jet stable. I gave that example to tell you guys that how the new Ducati or the new bikes are similar to that. You know, they are like unstable beasts, but the computers, the electronics make them stable. But Aprilias were never like that. The chassis and the swing arms made all the difference. So it never relied on electronics. Hence, the chassis and the swing arm combination has always been brilliant. You know, and a funny thing is, they say Aprilias are uncrashable bikes. They are so stable there, it's really hard to crash them. I've crashed them 3 times, so you know what, they are crashable. But in terms of the chassis and swing arm combination, these were the main reasons, and that's why I spent so long talking about this, because this is the piezo resistance, this is the bread and butter, this is what Aprilias are known for, and that's why they are so special. Gearing, let's talk about gearing. Gearing, like any other OEM gearing or any other OEM bike, is pretty long. So if you're going to take the bike to the track, you know, a 1 tooth down in the front or 2 tooth up at the back would be a great idea. That will really sort the problem out. Don't overcomplicate things. Keep it simple. You know, if you want to go for a 520 chain sprocket combination, feel free, but I think start with what you've got first and then move as you evolve as a rider. Okay, let's talk about aerodynamics, most importantly the wings. I think someone who designed wings really loved origami, because it had all sorts of curves and bends, and they are there for a reason, and it all makes sense. Now you're going to ask me, did you feel the wings on the road? Of course not. And I think on a lot of circuits as well, like the Donington back straight, where you get a bit of a lift, I really don't think you're going to feel the wings there, unless you are Mr. Dean Ellison or anybody else, and you're going to be coming out of the that corner at a pretty good speed, and then you might feel. But I think somewhere like Mugello, Portimao, where there's a bit of a hump, you know, on the back straight, on the main straight, sorry, you will really feel the wings, because the bike won't lift. Even with the old Aprilia wings, when Michael Neves tested the Aprilia Works kit with the wings at the Mugello straight, he said without the wings there was a lift, with the wings there was no lift. So yes, the wings do produce a meaningful downforce. However, sometimes, if you remember the first race of this year at Qatar, the Ducati with those big massive wings and multiple wings they've got, that was getting really disturbed by the crosswinds. However, with this bike, they've designed the wings in a certain way that winds doesn't affect the wings. So it's really good. Also, what you got to remember is the wings actually do more than what it seems. So number one, they keep the hot air away from the rider, they cool the bike efficiently, and of course they've got the aerodynamic factor. So you know what, people just think the wings are there for one reason only, but look, you know, they save you from crosswinds, they're really good with the downforce, they keep the hot air away from the rider, so it gives it a bit of a cocoon and cools the bike. So I think the wings on this bike, no matter what people's opinions are, you kind of fall in love with them when you really kind of feel on the track their benefits. Okay, let's talk about the engine. The engine on this bike, like any other Aprilia, is an absolute masterpiece. That skinny V4 is beautiful, and also it's very practical. Every bike struggles these days with these CATs and Euro 5s low down. Aprilia is a little bit different. Low down, it's not as bad as you would find maybe an inline 4, you know, because they get affected more with the Euro 5. I think V4s and V-twins are a little bit less, because inherently they've got a decent torque curve, a very nice smooth curve as well, especially the Aprilia RSV4 RFs. I've seen many graphs. You know, I'm part of a few forums, you know, I manage a few Aprilia pages as well. I've seen a few graphs before the remaps, after the remaps. One thing which you always see is a common theme is that beautiful smooth torque curve, and that's what you get on this bike as well. It's absolutely lovely. There are no lumpiness, no snatches, no surprises. The power is immense. You feel it. I mean, I was absolutely giving it everything I had, and it was brilliant. It's like I've got 180 odd horsepower on my RF, but this was on another level, and the electronics are there to really support you with that lovely power. And next we're going to talk about electronics. Okay, with electronics you get the whole lot, and now it's got that Marelli race touch. So you got the traction control, wheelie control, you know, you got cornering ABS, you name it, it's got everything, and you've got all that 6-axis IMU benefits as well. Now electronics on the Aprilia RFs have always been a little bit stop-start. They've evolved them slightly every kind of time they've got a new RF you know, on since the APRCs, but they've never been spot on. Now they don't need any help from any upgrades, because It's not an evolution, it's actually a revolution, which this bike really needed. The way these new types of electronics are, they want you to hit the limit of adhesion, and then the electronics guides you safer. So the actual electronics really want you to go faster, safer. So the electronics are actually aiding you to do more slides and, you know, give it some on the brakes and really come out hard out of corners. Now on the other side, it was a little bit damp outside Silverstone, so I then increased the traction control more, less. I was playing with so many settings. One thing I would really say is these bikes are not plug and play anymore. Any new bike, you know, if you think you're going to get out of the showroom and just, you know, ride with all these buttons, with all that colored dash stuff, it can sometimes put you off, saying, oh my god, I can't be bothered with this. The thickness of the manual now is twice as thick as before, because there are so many controls, and you really got to spend your time to really mold the bike around you, you know, and you really then, you know, it pays you dividends, because, you know, otherwise it's just going to be very snatchy. The electronics on this bike are really smooth. There were some corners I was coming out and it just gave me a nice progressive slide. I mean, let me show you a very good example from my Mallory Park visit 2 weeks ago, and this will show you a very good example of how I was giving it, I think it's at the bus stop, that slow U-turn thing, and I gave it everything I had coming out of the bend, and the electronics were like, you will see it. I'll just play the clip now. So if you saw there, my bike was like on and off, because my traction control settings were 2, but I had 0 anti-wheelie and 0 launch control or something like that. But still, even with those 2, so out of 8, I think I had 2. Even with that, the bike was like, you know, what are you doing? And, you know, it was finding it difficult. With this one, it doesn't do that juddery thing. It really, like I said to you, encourages you, you know what, you want to come out of the corner, do it, and I will make it slide, and I will, you know, kind of make it nicer for you coming out of corners. So, you know what, they are absolutely spot on. Okay, let's talk about suspension and damper. On this bike, you get the version 2 of the electronic suspension with all the artificial intelligence sorcery. However, there are 2 sides to it. Number 1, on the road is absolutely sublime. The electronic damper, you change it up and down, it makes it hard and soft. You can really feel the difference. And feel the difference is the theme with this topic, because Aprilia spend a lot of R&D money on these different settings. You've got the race modes, you've got the track modes, you've got the rain modes, you've got the user modes, you've got all different modes for a reason. But us people, we just want something plug and play. These bikes are not plug and play anymore. You really got to spend a lot of time with the suspension. And honestly, if you're one of those people who thinks, oh, I wouldn't notice the difference, I'm not talented enough to notice the difference, trust me, you know, you do notice the difference. There was one straight, and I kept going on that, so I bet you the village people were absolutely fed up of me, and I was doing some decent speed. On that straight, I did it on the hardest setting. There were some tiny bumps, and it just was gliding through the bumps. And it wasn't a very comfortable glide, because I was really giving it everything I had, and it was more like a bit of a tire chatter. Suddenly, I reduced the stiffness slightly, and you know, it was sublime. I did it more, and it felt a bit more road-like. So I think it's got a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde theme to it. So it can be fantastic, you know, on kind of on fast journeys and stuff like that, and it could be really sublime and plush when you really want to have, you know, kind of a slow, nice journey. But on the racetrack, when you are even faster than the fast group riders, I think you might want to go to the manual settings with the suspension. You can actually set the suspension up to a manual setting, but I still think the super uber fast riders on the racetrack probably would think that the artificial intelligence in the suspension isn't thinking fast enough as a human would do. Okay, quick shifters and blippers, sublime. No other word, absolutely brilliant. You know, the harder you accelerate, the smoother it is. And you know what, if people complain that, oh, I can't, upshift while I'm braking, it's not going to do that. Or I can't downshift while I'm accelerating. Why do you want to do that? You know, there's people on forums just complaining about random things, but there are absolutely zero issues with the Blipper and the quick shifter. Absolutely sublime, plush, and it does the job absolutely brilliantly. There is no other word. I had no issues, no complaints. You know, at any speed it would just do what you really want to do, and the harder you ride it, the better it works. Okay, let's talk about brakes. Brakes are fantastic. Stillimer calipers, Brembo, great. You can add on the flipping air intake to cool them as well if you really want to, but they are brilliant, no problems. Yes, the OEM pads are not super perfect for the track, but trust me, you won't have a problem. I used OEM pads before from Brembo for 1.5 years on the tracks. They were fantastic. If you've got a complaint about the brakes, change the pads. ABS doesn't intervene as well. I tried it a lot and I tried it quite less. The road was damp to start with, then it became dry, then it was damp again. So I was trying different things, but brakes, zero complaints, and they are absolutely fantastic. Throttle, let's talk about throttle on this bike. The throttle on this bike is non-wired. So you have ride-by-wire technology. A lot of people complain about ride-by-wire. I can't feel anything, there's no feel. Just take your time. You just got to take your time with it. You know, that day I was testing the Aprilia RSV4 RF and the Tuono at the same time, and by about 4 o'clock I knew exactly what that throttle was doing. There's less roll, less fatigue. You know, you can really get on to full power pretty quick, and you know, the throttle is sublime. It takes some time to get used to, but you know what, no complaints. Absolutely brilliant, smooth throttle. Tires. A lot of people complain about OEM tires. You know what, there's nothing wrong with OEM tires. I was riding in the, you know, wet a little bit, damp, then dried. I couldn't really find a reason, and I was giving it some. A lot of people say, oh, OEM tires are not the same as the race tires or the SC2s, you know, and stuff like that. Yes, I tend to agree, but you know what, if you're that talented, then, you know, fair enough, change them. But I didn't find any issues with the tires whatsoever. Okay, let's talk about the lights now. Now, these are the Aprilia RSV4 RF lights, and they've not changed, to be honest. They've not changed that much since 2009, 2010, but they did have a bit of a change in 2015. So these are the 2015, 2016 RF lights, but then 17, 18, 19, 20, they were exactly the same. Excuse this has been in a crash, and hence I've got it in my hand, but the lights have not broken. So you had the normal kind of your running lights, and then you had the high beam in the middle, but they were never LED, or they were not like white lights or kind of HID style lights. They were always kind of normal yellowish light. However, at the back, if I can put this on the side and without knocking my lights off, however, at the back, excuse the broken light, but it's a perfect example to show you what they had inside. They still had loads of LEDs at the back. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 14 LEDs at the back. So they did have LEDs at the back, but now headlights have completely changed and the rear lights look absolutely brilliant. So let me now show you what the new lights look like. Its lights on this bike are not only beautiful, but they are very, very intriguing, because in my last video I showed you on corners the lights turn on. So you got cornering lights. You can dim those lovely, I think they're called plethora lights or something. You can dim them, they look absolutely beautiful. But most importantly, if you live in America compared to Europe, if you are in America, you do not get the indicators in the headlamps. Okay, I'm sure there will be a hack later on. You can probably, I'm sure Aprilia has not made a completely different headlight for America. They've just turned that function off. And if you are in America, you get the indicators on the rear view mirrors. But if you are in the UK or Europe, you get the indicators based in the headlamps. I think there's one bonus to it. If you go to the racetrack, you take the mirrors off, you don't get any warnings on your dash. You only get the warning when you do the indicator and then the circuit realizes there are no indicators attached. Then you get a warning, otherwise you won't. But you know, I think if this is quite surprising that American guys are not getting the indicators based in the headlamps. Something quite intriguing. I thought you might find it interesting. Okay, let's talk about the exhaust, the heavy beast on that Euro 5 2021 bike. Now this in my hand is a Euro 3 exhaust, and trust me, this weighs an absolute ton, especially this cat which is at the back. So this was from my bike, and you know what, I have actually done a video weighing a lot of the items on my bike. It's a full video, it's a very long video, but this exhaust, and I've also weighed the Euro 4 exhaust, and obviously Euro 5, I've not really had a chance to weigh one of them, but I've weighed the Euro 3, I've weighed the Euro 4, and most importantly, if I can just make sure my mic doesn't get turned off, most importantly, ignore the state of this. It's been through a crash as well, but this was barely 1.5 kilos, if I can remember. It's titanium, the mid pipe weighs nothing, and compared to this Euro 3, it was I don't remember now, maybe 5.5 kilos easy lighter. Now with the new exhaust, what you got to think of with the new exhaust is Euro 5 is got a lot more cats than this bad boy had. So with that exhaust, the one thing I really like is that the weight is actually sitting quite low. So if you're not one of those people who are going to change it to the Aerodynamics exhaust, and now let me tell you something, the old Aerodynamics is back. Gone is the R1. I like to call it the dare I say Aprilia, I'm sorry, but I like to call it the R1 style Aerodynamics exhaust is gone. Aprilia has gone back with this new model to the original 2009, 2010, 11, 12, 13, all, you know, 14, 15, 16, you know, that exhaust, which they did so much R&D. They won, like, I think was it 2 or 3 world championships, you know. So a lot of R&D happened with that exhaust. What I mean by, I mean this exhaust, you know, excuse the tapes, you know, the aluminium tapes, but this was the exhaust, the full system, I mean, Evo 2, Evo 3, whatever they call it. They did a lot of R&D with that one, and it's back with this new model. So if you're not going to change it to that exhaust, then you still don't have to worry about anything, because all the cats are sitting quite low. So the center of gravity, all the weight is quite low. So when you're turning the bike, you actually don't feel the weight of that bike. So if you are a purist and you still want to go with that exhaust, on higher notes the exhaust sounds beautiful, you know, there is no problems. On the lower revs it doesn't sound that good, to be very honest. Okay, let's talk about the forged wheels. Aprilia RSV4 RF bikes, the forged ones, the factory editions, always had amazing light aluminium wheels, or if you're in America, aluminum wheels. So I've actually done a video where I've weighed a lot of the wheels, like magnesium R1, forged aluminium Aprilia, non-forged 2ono wheels, old school R1 wheels, Dimag, you know, Oz wheels, BSD carbon with ceramic bearing, without ceramic bearing. I did a detailed video weighing all the wheels, and Aprilia's factory OEM forged aluminium wheels were one of the lightest, if not the lightest. I think the only wheel they came close to was the Oz gas wheels. Otherwise they are so light, you hit every single apex every time, or when you're on the country route you absolutely feel the lightness when you are really turning the bike. So you know what, there's a reason they're so light and so strong, because they've got this crisscross arrangement. On the other side, if you are used to seeing my videos, you will know that I actually keep these wheels as a spare ones if I ever crash, like I did before and I ruined my carbon wheels. Now you will say, why are you using carbon wheels when you've got you say these wheels, Aprilia wheels, are so light? Now here's a very good example. Okay, this is the outer circle of a crashed carbon wheel from my old crash. Now this, you know what, it hardly weighs anything. You know, absolutely nothing. All the wheel of a carbon is in the center. Now, part of me is a little bit sad that for £23,000, should Aprilia have used carbon wheels like BMW give you? And I think BMW are brave, and I really commend them for it. But to be honest, Aprilia has no reason to put extra costs and put carbon wheels with the bike, because these forged aluminiums are really light. And now you're going to ask me, why do I use carbon wheels on my bike? Because when I actually crashed, this is the rear wheel and it's super light. When I actually crashed my bike at Silverstone, someone actually gave me their hardly used second-hand carbon wheels for an absolutely stunning price. It was like half price, with ceramic bearings, with disc brakes, with a pair of slick tires. So that's why I use carbon wheels. Otherwise, to be honest, those Aprilia light wheels are absolutely stunning. If I can remember, I think the rear was probably 0.7 or 0.8 of a kilo heavier than the carbon ones, and the front was only 0.4 of a kilo, which is 400 grams lighter. The carbon wheel was lighter than the Aprilia. So these Aprilia forged aluminium wheels are absolutely stunning. They're super light. You're really going to feel the difference on the road if you're used to riding a non-forged aluminium wheel. Okay, right at the end, let's talk about some quirky bits, because I think it's really important, because this bike has got some really nice kind of different things to it, which wasn't found in the previous model. So, I mean, the previous model, this was the rear hugger, which is quite plain, quite simple. Now they've actually got a bit of a design going. I actually have a mudguard in my hand. So now they've actually got I can probably show you on the video, they've got a design going in the middle, and the rear hugger is actually a little bit longer, which looks quite nice. And also the front mudguard, this is from an RF as well from before. It's kind of I shouldn't say mock carbon, but looks a bit matte mock carbon, and it's quite simple and plain. The new one, they've really added some intricate curves here and there, and there's a bit of a line going through as well. And what I really like, here and there on the bike, they've used little triangles, dare I say, and I mentioned that in my first video when I did the overview of the Aprilia. They look like the Mercedes Formula 1 AMG little triangles, and they look lovely. Wherever you can think you would put carbon, on the bike, you've got these little things. They're also in the kind of wings as well. They've not left any space with some bland plastic. They've like kind of put these little triangles, which I really find really interesting. There's some dog collar things on the headlamps, which look really lovely. And there's, on the side as well, these like kind of little, I'm going to say again, Mercedes little sign without the circle. So little triangle, not triangle, like a tri-legged thing without the circle, and they look really nice. So, and there are many more other touches on the bike, which is different from the previous bike, which I really like, and I think even I found when I was doing the first video, even the coolant pipes had some design on them. So they really kind of made an effort with this bike and not left any kind of thing turn. They've also kind of painted with kind of a bit like stone chip matte paint the rear sets as well here and there. So little changes, try to do a bit differently, and I think I quite like that. So it's time to answer the all-important question: should you go for the factory version or the base version? And you know what, I absolutely hate calling it the base version or the standard version. It's no way a standard base thing. That Aprilia, that model is really good. The only difference between the factory and that standard version is the cast aluminium wheels, non-forged wheels I should really call it, not cast. And also it's got no electronic suspension. But are you better than a Showa suspension? I think the Kawasaki are winning the world championships year after year with Johnny Ray with some Showa suspension. I know they are next level, but what I'm trying to say is, what makes the standard model worse than the factory one? I don't see many reasons. If you're going to take this bike full time to the track or race, definitely buy the standard version. Upgrade them to the Aprilia forged aluminium wheels or carbon wheels or whatever lighter wheels you can find, and maybe put a K-Tech or Olin's cartridge kit, Maxton, by Tubo, Mupo. You've got so many options out there. So within 3 grand max you will have a proper race beast, and then you can put any more upgrades on top if you really want to. So that's that. But if you want this bike for road and track, or majority for the road, or sometimes at the track, the factory version is fantastic. And also, to be honest, on the track, I know 2 people who use the Aprilia with the electronic suspension on the track, and it's absolutely brilliant. They don't have any complaints whatsoever. But like I mentioned before, for that really fast rider, I think the predictability of the standard cartridges, race cartridges, are probably better than the artificial intelligence of the electronic suspension. But you know what, guys, if it was my money, I would definitely go for the base version, the standard version, you know, and put some aftermarket bits on, and it'll be an absolute track weapon. But that's not saying that it, you know. The only thing which bothers me is that £4,000-5,000 price difference between the 2 bikes. I think the base model, the standard model, is it 5 grand worse than the factory one? No way, no way. Both these bikes are absolutely stunning in their own way. You know, if it was my money, like I said before, I'd buy the standard version, kit it up for the track. But I mainly use that for the track. For the road, I use an old school Triumph. But anyways, guys, so that was my kind of thought on that. One thing I really also want to say before I end this video, there is a lot of naysayers and there's a lot of negativity around Italian bikes in general, reliability. Oh, how often do you service? One question I get on a weekly basis: is your bike giving you any problems? How many times do you service it? You know what? You should always a little bit over service your bike or a car anyways. You know, that if you love your vehicles, you are going to over service it. I get my valve clearance checked every year. I get my bike serviced after every 3 track days. I get no problems from my bike. So stop listening to these people who say, oh, I haven't got a dealership near me. Guys, I look after 3 Aprilia groups on social media. You know, one of them is called the Aprilia Factory. I'm one of the moderators on there. I myself have an Aprilia group, Aprilia RSV4 RF Factory, and there's another one, Aprilia RSV4 group, I am actually a moderator on. And I see, you know, such great camaraderie and positivity. If someone does have a valve drop issue or anything else, you know, from the earlier versions of the bike, you know, we all are together helping them. And we do track days, we hold track days, and we organize track days. And there's a great kind of positivity in the Aprilia group. So stop listening to people who put you off about dealerships. And you can get parts, you can get upgrades, there's no problems. The RSV4 has not changed much since 2009. Even the new model, my goodness me, when I got on it, I knew I was on the Aprilia straight away, you know, and so bike hasn't changed that much. So honestly, guys, if you love an Aprilia, stop overthinking, get that RSV4, and stop listening to these people who complain about dealerships and lack of parts and everything like that. Yes, because of Brexit and if you are living in the other side of the pond, you know, America and stuff like that, you know, there might be a slight delay, but America's got a great dealership network with the Aprilias, and UK has got a fantastic one too. So, you know, just be positive, and if you really want this bike, go and get it. I hope this detailed review was helpful. I tried to go through everything. Video was a bit long, but this is what you get when you really want an in-depth look on a bike. So guys, if you want more videos like this, and if you want to support me, please like this video. When you like this video, it doesn't make me a millionaire, I always say that. It promotes this video to other like-minded bikers or people who want to know more about Aprilias. And when you subscribe, you know the drill. You get notifications and stuff like that about my videos. So thank you for always supporting me. Thank you for meeting me at track days. I do a lot of track days on my Aprilia, and a lot of people come and meet me. So thank you for all the support. Look after yourself. Stay safe.